Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Drika Wahyu Minjayani, name 13. Here I will read resume of group discussion 6. Introduction. Second regular acquisition emerged as a distinct leaf of ration in the late 1950 to early 1960. Mitchell and Miller's 1980. Ritchie and Bhatia 1996. Quality to answer question as the following. Is it possible to acquire an additional language in the same sense as one acquires an phrase language if you are the two processes similar? If not, what is the difference between acquisition and learning? Are the motivation for people to acquire addition primarily integrative or are the instrumental? Is the art different between the end result of the process of language depends on the nature of motivation? What is the role of introduction in the acquire of an additional language? What social cultural factor, if any, are revealed in study the learning acquisition of the Latin? Second, language acquisition in multilingual context. The word English orientation recognition.
Even the so-called English medium school and missionary school employ a large number of teachers for whom English is an additional language. Many of the missionary schools in India, Sri Lanka, and other parts of the world were and are still run by European mission rather than denomination from Britain or the USA. In fact, one of the early English medium schools in India was started by a German missionary in Tanjore. In contemporary science, print and audiovisual media expose learned to American popular culture, resulting in the development of indigenous variants of local popular cultures, and this have the most impact on young users of English in Delhi, Singapore, and Lagos. Another point is that the concept of interlanguage and fossilization are not the appropriate models for researching word Englishes. as has been pointed out. Interlanguage is an unstable system whereas Indian, Nigerian, Singaporean, and Ghanaian English in many respects are as stable as American or British English. Secondly, users of these varieties are not trying to achieve some other target variety, and the attitude towards and the appraisal of the role of first or primary language in SLA need to recognize the fact in multilingual situation, primary language have a very positive part of play in the acquisition of the additional target language. All language in the communities reporters have mutually complementary and sustaining roles. The innovation in lexicon, grammar, and discourse inspired by the primary language contribute to building the learner's communicative competence in the target language on the one hand, and acculturation of the target language to the local context on the other.
Okay, the next is interlanguage and word Englishes. According to Kachru, the basic interlanguage notion may be useful in describing the process of SL learning in instructional settings in which English is not employed for any real instrumental purposes outside the learning situation itself. Interlanguage as a concept, however, has no relevance to stable contexts of multilingualism across the world. In particular, claims that entire varieties of English are not dead, but are instead fossilized forms of historical precedents, result of imperfect learning, fly in the face of assessment of varieties in their own terms, without biases introduced by comparison to chronological antecedents. American English would have to be considered an imperfectly learned version of British English under such definition. Sociolinguistic contexts in which users' multilingual repertoire include English are linguistically as stable as any monolingual society's context, involving, to be sure, but not subsumed under the learning curves of interlanguage interpretation as fossilized varieties. The notion of repertoire has to be seen in ways different from, more complex than, those that give rise to register analyzed in monolingual societies or studies limited to monolingual contexts. In the broader language use of a multilingual person, language complement one another in the same ways that various registers do within their domains of applicability. It is reasonable to assume that one does not discuss knitting, marriage arrangement, and physics in the same language. In other words, no one code is appropriate in all domains. The models for SLA in the outer or expanding circles are to a great extent the teacher and materials in classroom. While this modeling situation is the same as for the French classroom in Birmingham or Idaho, The usage to be made of a second language, English, outside the classroom, and the reinforcement or expansion of the classroom learning to be found in the greater society's modeling of English, including the media, make the overall situation entirely different from one another.
Acquisition of English in the outer and expanding curricula, the crab pattern, the assumption of classes called paradigm of research, and the group realities of acquisition of English in the outer and expanding curriculum clearly indicates that the concepts and matter of the former are not immediately and totally transferable to the latter situation. A reality from the relation of acquisition of English outside the inner circle, the even to some community within the inner circle involves and you understand of the follow point. They are not different speaker and reading. They are proficient use of English plus other language in the domain where the speaks code or codes are appropriate English in the ritual of.
Number 2 is nativization and Anglicization. Nativization refers to the adaptation of English in a particular social-cultural settings and leads to qualifying descriptors such as US English, Indian English, Singaporean English, and so on. Anglicization refers to the manifest influences of English on other language is a given repertoire levels of language from pronunciation, though literary genre may be affected in discernible ways. The phenomenon of the concern to some police observers a matter of increasing the flexibility of code on communication to others, and code mixing and code switching together compress as major characteristic of the user of word Englishes, with its reality observable, but a capacity not easily grasped by monolingual investigators. A monolingual perspective view mixing and switching as unnecessary, even illogical. The reality of the phenomena cannot be discounted, however.
Finally, integrating word Englishes into the paradigms of SLA demands that attempt at theory building take into account the fact of multilingualism, function of language or language in the total repertoire of communities, and the creative potential of human linguistic behavior. It is encouraging to note that the situation outlined above with regard to SLA research may be changing, as Sridhar and Sridhar note. Anderson lists indigenized language as a distinct setting or type of acquisition in his typology of SLA contexts and processes. Muiskan, working independently of IVEs, advocates a perspective on SLA that correspond to the paradigms argued for in this chapter. To see second language learning as becoming a member of a speech community governed in the same way as other forms of verbal behavior by norms that obtain in that particular speech community. More recently, Jenkins has suggested that there is really no justification for doubly persisting in referring to an item as an error if the vast majority of the word L2 English speakers produce and understand it. Instead, it is for L1 speakers to move their own receptive goals, pause and adjust their own expectations as far as international uses of English are concerned. Thank you. Wassalamu'alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.